Hello and welcome back to 12 Days of Giftmas. So another gift I got. This deck is something I've been contemplating getting on and off for the last 2 years because something about it makes me go, wow, but there's one card in the deck that makes me go, oof, do I want it? And so I was contemplating getting it. And then Martin got it for me. Now it almost seems like Martin is my sugar daddy who gives me all my decks. And that's true. No, just kidding. But he did send me a really nice parcel over. We sometimes do that for each other because we're very close friends, but we live apart. So sometimes we will send each other, little parcels with some gifts to kind of cheer each other up because we can't visit each other weekly or monthly, So he did that for me for Christmas, and I'm going to do the same for him, but I'm still waiting on something special for me to put in there. So the Voyager Tarot, really interesting, offbeat tarot deck. It's been out for ages. It's very affordable and really cool. It comes in this slide out box, which I like. I love that it's affordable. It comes with this really neat little guidebook, which is already packed with information. Now, this is not going to be a deep dive. This is just going to be about me reacting to the art. The deck is still in order. I love the way the backs look, by the way. And starting with the art, you guys will see why I disliked this deck in the first place. I'm gonna zoom us in a little bit so y'all can see it better. All right, so this first card, and it's the first card you see in every freaking flip through of this deck, is the card that put me off the deck completely because of this weird little child's face in the corner. And I was like, I'm not getting this. It's ridiculous. But then I started looking at the other cards and I was like, ooh, so this deck does it have keywords on every card? No, the majors don't really have keywords, but all the minors do, and they're really interesting. They're different. The art is very old school collage style art, which I adore, and is very full. It's very filled to each and every corner of the card, and you can basically almost taste it and smell it. So it's very evocative. And I kind of feel like once I get to use this deck a little bit more, and once I get to know it a little bit more, I may actually bring this over whenever I do client readings because I think it will spark reaction and interaction. So now that we got that horrible Fool card out of the way, we got the Magician with that awesome mask, and oh man, there's so much to see here. And I'm just gonna make it a flip through. I'm not gonna respond to every single thing in this deck. The Priestess, which I adore. I think that James Wanless, who worked together with Ken Knutson, the artist, that they really did everything they could at the time with their limited techniques to really evoke the feeling of the card. The Empress is gorgeous. The Emperor is gorgeous as well. So apart from that, Fool, and then there was one other card that I kind of dislike, which is a Page, I think, or another more childlike card. All the other art is really good. It's really good. Really interesting collage work. The Hierophant, like the Lovers with this really cool effigy, which symbolizes two people coming together. The Light and the Dark, the Rose. There's so much to see. The Chariot, I love as well, because this does give me agency, swiftly moving energy. So much to see, so much to. Then we have Balance, which is justice. We have the Hermit, which has to be one of my faves. We have fortune. Oh man, like so much to see in here. Anything in this card could trigger a very cool intuitive response. Strength. This is kind of looking like a mess, but I don't really care. The Hanged Man. Really interesting. Death. Probably has to be one of my favorite death cards ever because it's so special. Art. Art is a very Thoth Crowley-esque term for temperance, where we kind of get that art of water and fire coming together and creating something new. For example, this rainbow right here, we get the fire energy of the sun and we get the water energy of the rain, and when they combine, this gorgeous rainbow appears. Devil's Play, interesting. The Tower. The Star, which is gorgeous, and I believe this is an image of or a statue of Kuan Yin, but I'm not quite sure about that. The Moon, once again, also gorgeous. The Sun, not my favorite, but also very pretty. Time Space rather than Judgment, so I'm gonna have to delve into that. And the Universe for the world, which I love. And then we head into the minors. Now I'm going to take these majors away. I'm going to put them back into the box so they stay in order the way I want them to for now, because I really want to take my time with this deck. I don't just want to mess them up. So we get crystals, which is air. 2 of crystals, and here we see the keywords at the top. 3 of crystals, 4 of crystals, 5 of crystals, 6 of crystals, 7 of crystals, 8 of crystals, 9 of crystals, 10 of crystals, the delusion. I love that. So the terminology that is presented here at the top of each card, which you have read now, and some of the words I've said aloud, they don't really correspond with the way I was taught how to read tarot, and I don't know if the little guidebook that comes with this set covers the rhyme or reason behind it. So I'm gonna read that thoroughly first, and then if that doesn't satisfy me, I may get the bigger guidebook that does exist. And then we get into the quartz, which is very interesting. So the quartz begin not with the page, but with the sage, who's the wisest. So, and we kind of get this archetypal Myers-Briggs personality type esque term at the top. So the Sage of Crystals is the knower, the Child of Crystals is the learner, the Woman of Crystals is the guardian, and the Man of Crystals is the inventor. So that's cool. So let's see if I was right, because I do feel like I messed something up here. Let's see. Yeah, crystals is mine. Cool. I just wanted to check for sure. And then we have cups for emotions, wands for spirit or passion, and then we have the globes. Where's the globes? Oh, worlds, which is the physical world, which would be pentacles. Okay, so you get the Ace of Cups, ecstasy, 2 of Cups, gorgeous, equilibrium. All of this is very new agey, but I do love it. 3 of Cups for love. So these all kind of make a lot more sense until now. We get anger for 4 of Cups. The 5 of Cups, disappointment. 6 of Cups, sorrow. Do love this imagery though. 7 of Cups for fear. Eight of Cups, stagnation. Nine of Cups, fulfillment. 10 of Cups for passion. Sage of Cups. So the Sage is the regenerator. And generally, what I have found out about this deck, when the cards get a little bit more peoply, that's where the deck kind of loses me. For example, this little granny down here, I'm kind of like, meh, could have lived without her. But you know, as a whole, quite like it, honestly, quite love it, actually. Same with this one, the Child of Cups. This was the other card that I absolutely loathed when I saw it, and that kind of put me off. Child of Cups is the feeler. Woman of Cups, the rejoicer. And Man of Cups, the surfer. Now, this one I love again. So it's not that black and white. So I'm gonna put these back into the box as well, as to keep the deck in order for now. And then we head into the worlds. We get Ace of Worlds, success. Two of Worlds, reflection. Three of Worlds, nurturing. Four of Worlds, commencement. Five of Worlds, setback. Six of Worlds, synergy. Also, again, one of my favorites, probably. Seven of Worlds, breakthrough. Eight of Worlds, change. Nine of Worlds, harvest. 10 of Worlds, reward. Sage of Worlds, the master. Now, I don't mind this sage. I think the imagery matches up nicely. Child of Worlds, the player. Don't like that either. Woman of Worlds, the preserver. It's interesting. And then we get the King of Worlds, who's the achiever. Now, this is another king where I don't like. So usually where the imagery gets too peoply or too modern, that's where the deck loses me. Yeah, I've made up my mind. So we're going to put this stack back into the box as well. That was the Worlds, and now the last suit, the suit of Spirit or Passion, which is the Ace, which is the suit of Wands. So we get the Ace of Wands for illumination, the Two of Wands for purity. Love that. Can you guys even see it properly? Yeah, purity. Three of Wands for compassion. Four of Wands for aspiration. Five of Wands for oppression. The Six of Wands for trust. The Seven of Wands for courage. The Eight of Wands for harmony. Ooh, that's interesting. We get all these musical instruments, like, so as you can see, and this is not the first time I flipped through this deck, but each and every time I flip through this deck, something else about it kind of triggers me. I think this is a really, I'm gonna get into my thoughts later. Let's just experience the deck together first. Integrity, Nine of Wands. Growth, 10 of Wands. Wow. Ooh. The Sage of Wands. Now, once again, where it gets a little bit peoply, and here it's kind of synergized well, so I don't mind it that much, but... But the Seer, that's the Sage of Wands. The Child of Wands is the Seeker. Now, this is one of the only child cards that I like. The Woman of Wands is the Censor. And the Man of Wands is the Actor. I adore this card, even though it is a bit peoply. So, final thoughts on this deck. As for now, because I'm going to use it a couple of times to see how I feel about it. The Voyager Tarot is a really special deck. It was published first in like the 80s, I think. Does it say on the box when it was first published? It probably says in the booklet. Let me Let me check that really quickly. I know this can get a little bit annoying for you guys, but yeah. 1986. Wow, I wasn't even born yet. I can only imagine in 1986 how the tarot community must have responded after years and years of pretty much, I mean, there were decks that were being published. Actually, there were some pretty cool decks from the 80s that never got a reprint, especially by US Games, that I really feel should get a reprint. But I can only imagine when this baby came out for the first time, it must have felt like a complete revolution, because what this does is it turns the tarot upside down and inside out, swallows it whole, spits it back out again, then swallows it again, then excretes it, and then turns it into a deck. And that's why this is such a special piece of history, and the fact that this deck, even though all these other decks that got released back then never got any reprints, that this deck is still in print, says a lot about the validity of the tool and the work and energy that went into it. And I don't believe in decks that have, I hear a lot of people go, oh, this deck has a such and such a voice, or I use this deck primarily for this when it comes to tarot, you know, or I use it for that, or I use it for shadow work. I don't believe in that at all. A tarot deck is a tarot deck. You can use the Fluffy Bunny Tarot of the Holy Kittens, which is a deck that I just made up, for shadow work, just as well as you can use the Dark Demon Devil Bones Tarot, which is another deck that I just made up. So a tarot deck is a tarot deck to me. If you believe differently, that's fine. But with this one, you can feel the soul and the energy that went into the deck, into the creation of the deck. This wasn't another soulless retracing of Pamela Coleman Smith's art. This wasn't another, hey, we're trying to be edgy, so we are going to make an RWS deck, but with cutesy looking monsters. And once again, nothing wrong with those decks, but you can feel that the creator and the writer had a clear vision and tried to do something completely different. And I adore that. I adore decks that are like that. The Dreams of Gaia Tarot by Raven Phelan comes to mind. Another deck, the Marielle Tarot, comes to mind. And it's only every 5 to 10 years a deck like that comes out. They don't happen that often. I know, and I'm a creator myself as well. And when I created my deck, when I created my first tarot deck, I felt so special. And I felt like this was going to be the deck to end all decks, because you kind of get into that delusional mindset when you're creating something, and that's good because, you know, you have to believe in what you do. And it wasn't until I saw one of my copies of my decks on eBay from someone who decided to let theirs go that I was like, okay. You know, we as creators, we all think that our deck is going to be the deck that someone's going to carry with them for eternity. But that rarely happens. I have a handful of decks that I would save from a burning house, and the rest I would let burn. This one, however, this one is not part of that top 10 yet for me, but this one has stood the test of time because of that energy that is attached to it. And this is, once again, really very much an inspiration for me as well, where I'm kind of like, hey, if I ever do it, another tarot deck or another oracle deck that I create myself from scratch, I wanted to add something to this broad spectrum of decks that is already out there. And for my first tarot and oracle deck, it was the masculinity aspect. Don't know what that's going to be in the future, but I want to add something. There are so many decks out there in the world right now. Like, it's actually insane. and they all look good, but a lot of those decks are just art decks, and there's nothing wrong with them, but I want creators to think about, what is my deck gonna add to the market, to the spectrum of the tarot? What do I have to add that I think is missing right now? That should be the primary goal of the creation of a tarot deck, in my opinion. And what I see right now is, a bunch of artists that are really good and have created gorgeous art, and they're just creating a tarot deck. I'm just creating. It's fun, I'm gonna look up what the Fool is supposed to look like, and I'm gonna do my rendition of it, and that's cute. But what I would love to suggest to all those great artists is, go look for a writer, a tarot writer. It can also be a reader, a good reader. For example, me, I would love to work together with an artist and do kind of what Lisa Robertson does, where she writes the deck. I think that's absolutely fascinating. So for every card, she writes a full page of story for the artist to use to create their image. I want that. I want to do that one day, and I would love for, tarot artists to maybe try and do the same. Find some people, know where your strengths lie. Find a good reader that's also a good writer. Ask them to help you. Share the credit. It's an interesting concept, and because what we see in the publishing world, where the artist's name is mentioned small underneath the writer's name, the author's name, or sometimes it's not even mentioned at all. The complete polar opposite is happening in the indie world, where it's just people making pretty art, but there's no depth to it. So that's how this inspired me today. Oh, I should stop maybe making the camera wobble. I'm gonna be using this deck. I'm gonna be cherishing it. I'm gonna be looking into these images, and I'm gonna be enjoying this. Thank you for another episode of 12 Days of Giftmas.